So is this the 6th video?
This is the 6th video in the Liminal Right Deep Dive Lyrics Deep Dive to the Minds of Moria, Invisible, Total Dictionary, Dissolving, Intergalactic, Weaving of the Ninth Circle into the Abyss of which time can only look back into you from the reverse polarity.
I don't know. I just feel like I need to salute right now. I don't know.
It is of thee, my lady liberty. Okay, so yeah, this is the 10th song on the album, but it was the last song that we wrote. And as a matter of fact, it was written by our bass player, Alex, for the most part. He did a bunch of bass work, guitar work, piano work, which we all then had our involvements in. But the funny thing about it is when you're doing a big project like this, you have deadlines, right? I knew that guitars had to be recorded by a certain point so that Mark could do his job by a certain point, and Alex and Sean, so that we could all do our part of the project in building off of one another. So you set these deadlines. Well, Alex came in after we had finished Beyond the Encasing of Ashes. What the hell? Oh, Beyond the Passage of Embers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Casing of Ashes. Beyond the Passage of Embers. We had finished the whole thing. And then he's like, you guys, I want to add this song to the record. And we were, not everybody, but me, I was like, we're kind of past the deadline. Like, we're going to have to really crunch to get Sean to do the drums for it and Mark to write the lyrics. Well, it turns out lyrically, this song is actually quite thin. You only have 1, 2, 3, 4 stanzas in the last minute or two of the song.
Yeah, if you could even consider some of those stanzas.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Just a couple of lines and a couple of repeats, which we're going to get into here in a second. But I thought it was interesting. And I do want to give a quick shout out to Alex and Chris for their piano work on this song, which also inspired other piano work on the record. So they did a great job with that. But let's talk about the lyrics.
Well, yeah, and one thing I want to talk about is the reason why the lyrics the singing doesn't really start till the end, and it's kind of because of what you mentioned, the piano work from Chris and Alex, and your guitar work as well. I felt like there was a really good interplay. Those 3 elements were really working together. There was this soft polyrhythmic element to it, where it wasn't super proggy, but it was just it flew really nicely. And Alex, I think Sean, but I know for sure Alex really wanted me to do some singing at the beginning, and I was like, no way, Jose, not happening, because I really think that this section is good enough. And then of course that huge hit happens, and there's room for some lyrics. And this is also the only song on the album that doesn't have any screaming in it. It's all cleans. I think this is technically our first no screaming song ever.
What? I did not even think of that.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm going through it in my head right now, and you're so right.
There's not a sad scream. There are no layers. And I've thought about it before, and I can't think of another song where it's all cleans. But that's this one, and it's all cleans. It's all one style. It's all belting. It's all that forward masky calling across the parking lot belt.
Hey. So here's the other thing too.
Exactly.
here's the other thing too. The only thing I can get you on is a technicality where
you sound like an old man who got startled.
Socialism. The only thing I can get you on a technicality is that Vigilo has humming, and that's it.
Okay, that's true.
But that's just haha. Nico got him. So let's talk about this song. But before we get into the lyrics of it, how did this affect the process of storytelling? Having done 10 songs and then having to do a song in position 9 effectively.
It was actually pretty easy.
Really?
Yeah, because if you think about Glass Phantoms to Beyond the Passage of Embers, it was kind of jarring. It's it in the realm of the story, it made more sense for there to be a transition, which this song provided. It let me sort of bridge the songs together lyrically. So, it's kind of like how in a lot of movies, it's the opening scene. Well, and this is kind of a trope in video games too. The opening scene, everybody's hanging around, having a good time. Next scene, they're in a car chase and people are shooting, and you're like, whoa, that all happened fast. Yeah,
and then it freeze frames, and it's like, hi, I bet you're wondering how I got here. And you're like, here we go.
Yeah, so this kind of allowed for a little bit more of a transition. So it was easy. It wasn't hard at all.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm always curious about that, because I know that musically, it's hard for me to like insert like a bridge or a verse when I already have the vibe of the song in my head.
Yeah.
And then I have to like extend it somehow.
Mm.
So let's talk about the lyrics here. So 4 or so minutes go by, and then the metal, for all of you fancy people out there, the metal kicks in. And it begins with the following. For a shadow to be cast, there a man must stand, but on the pulled up floors of my childhood, below me, a sun-bleached love of the past. What are you talking about?
So this is one of my favorite stanzas on the whole album, because it's basically signifying that he has become so lost to his regret and his obsession that he almost doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? He almost doesn't exist. So for a shadow to be cast, there a man must stand. So like, if I am not out, like my shadow is not outside because I am not outside.
Okay.
Right. And he's looking down at the floor and there's no shadow in front of him, only like a sun bleached section of the floor. Right. Not necessarily literal, but it's, you know, it's poetic, man.
Okay.
But well, I didn't know how else to say it.
No, it is, but like
you
you
know,
don't have to like just tell us that. Like we get it.
but I didn't know how to say it without sounding like an asshole. So I was like, well, I'll make it sound like a joke. But you know, I'm speaking figuratively. And so he's basically like the stanza is saying that is basically using the absence of his shadow to say that he doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And throughout the album, shadows and phantoms and ghosts are used to represent the family members that he misses, and his shadow is gone. So like he's lost himself basically. And then a sun-bleached love of the past is kind of a cool thing I thought of sort of last minute, but essentially like, you know, if you like remember being a kid and like you'd leave a toy out in the backyard for like 2 months, and then you noticed like the colors were all seeped out and like the clear plastic had turned brown and it just looked gross.
Yeah.
So the floorboards are sun bleached and cracked and everything, and his love of the past has been tainted and sort of watered down in a way. So he has ceased to exist, and all that is left is a pale and sad
like a husk of a man.
Yeah, a sad husk of nostalgia even. Yeah, it's like the sickly version of nostalgia, which this whole album is kind of about. Yeah, so that's pretty much what the first stanza is saying.
What I really like is that in the first two here, for the first 2 lines, for a shadow to be cast, there a man must stand. I like that this is almost a callback to the lyrics for Umbra, where it's like, I am but an eclipse of the sunlight. It's like another way of saying that.
Of course,
I did that.
I was thinking about that at the time.
There we go. Always. But then the second portion there is it's almost like the simile of how he is nostalgia, but it's like a descriptive simile. But and the way that you say it too is like you say it in reverse order. Like English would be on the pulled up floors of my childhood is sun bleached. The floor is sun bleached, but you just do it so poetically. The delivery is really cool. But on the pulled up floors of my childhood, below me, a sun bleached love of the past. I don't know, man. I can't fucking write like that, so I just have to take a minute to appreciate the wizardry in there.
I'm glad you like it.
I do. It also it sounds really good in the song because it's got this so powerful, like anthemic, like moment to it, like soaringness, which we like writing, but is also like juxtaposed to the darkness of the record at this point, except for this song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the second one here. Give me a little scroll job.
Oh yeah,
a little SJ, please.
Gotta give you a nice deep scrolling. I'm gonna scroll you deep.
I'm gonna scroll you till you can't scroll no more. Right there's that's good.
That's the rest of the song.
That is the entirety of the song, by the way. So this section is shades pulled from the bones of my old home, torn from the flesh of me.
So this is kind of building partially on the sun bleached element because like it's talking literally about like, you know, the window shades, you know, that have been removed, but it's also talking about shades as in color. The shades have been sun bleached, pulled away, removed, life essentially. Like the color's gone. I don't know how else to say it, but so
desaturated.
Desaturated. That's a really good word for it. Yeah. Yes. So I was trying to say two things. One, the house has been taken apart to some degree. Two, it's building on the sun bleaching, which has desaturated and made ugly his view of the past. And then as the house has been taken away and as the colors have been removed, so too has he deteriorated. So like his house has fallen apart and he feels like he has fallen apart. So that's what that's saying. That's what that line
makes
is.
a lot of sense. I think of like when people say like you have rose-colored glasses when like you're in a new relationship or you acquire like a new home or a car or something, like you have this incredibly probably unrealistic worldview of that thing because it's so beautiful and new to you. So the desaturation is almost a result of time, but in his case it's not only time, it's also deterioration of mind and perception.
Yep,
that's very interesting.
Correct.
There's another line here where you say, I never owned this, plaster and frame be damned. I never owned this. Is he saying I never owned this house?
So this is going back to I can't remember which song it is. I think track 3, but in that black metal section, blinded by greed for a past I don't own. Craters in the carpet.
Wow.
So I'm hearkening back to that section, and he's saying like, yeah, I never owned the house, but also he never owned his past. And he owned his life, his situation. This for him in this moment is very all encompassing. Like his life, his situation, his journey, his path, the house, his memories, all of that. He feels like he's never been in control of any of it. And so plaster and frame be damned. He's like, well, screw it then. You know, this house is the last remnant of a life I've had no control over. Let's get rid of it.
It's almost like he's an observer on his own life rather than like in control of it.
Yeah, a really good way to say it. Yeah, you know how sometimes we feel like we're just watching our life pass us by?
Yes.
That.
Oof.
And so he decides, and it takes place in the next album. He says, fuck it, basically.
Yeah.
I'm a tear this to the ground.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the next song, not the next album.
Is that what I said?
You said the next album.
Oh, next song. My apologies. Next song.
Next album's gonna be a lot different. Should we do one of these for like our intentions for the next album?
That'd be fun.
That would be really fun. We can like talk about what would be neat and fun, what we want to avoid, what we want to capture.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. So we're on the last lines here, which I'm gonna take credit for, and you can tell me I'm wrong. I think this might have been my idea. To have you call back to the physical items of the album.
So sort of.
Just tell me no.
Well, you were really interested in the items of every album, and we had originally planned on including little bits and like special editions.
Yeah.
So to supplement that idea, I wrote this section in this way.
Okay.
So I was inspired by your idea to call back to the items directly. Yeah.
I love it. See the collaboration. I don't need all the credit, but I did want to be like, I'm part of it. Okay, so you go on here to say curtain, candle, and letter, compost, cellar, and stone. Each of those things is referenced in previous songs.
Yep. Handmade curtains drew me home.
Boom.
That's in Silvered Shadows.
Yep.
Light the candle in the middle of the room.
Candle. Lavender calligraphy is the letter.
In the letter, that was pressing the pages before. I don't remember the lyrics, but the letter he found. Compost in the back of the house by the compost.
Yeah.
In the cellar.
Underneath
the stairs.
Underneath the stairs. Sips of wine stone.
Yeah. And then stone.
Is it the headstone?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm marked by the stone on his head. Yeah, the stone that in my mind, in my head canon, he threw and accidentally killed his brother with.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you have nothing to growl about, bud. He's just sitting down there being moody. And the thing is, like, this location where we live is so far removed. He doesn't hear anything.
No. Well, I don't hear anything anyway.
Me neither. But yeah, it's basically just stitching all those pieces together.
Yeah. So I want to kind of expand really quick, just since that's the whole song at this point. I want to expand on like why the items were important and what our plan kind of originally was, which is me thinking now, like, we should talk about our plan for the next record on another one of these videos. But, ultimately, we had this idea that we wanted to write a record that was about the idea of rapography, for those of you who watched video 1 or 2. And we wanted to create a special edition, like a collector's edition of the album that included some kind of physical items that were mentioned in this album. Yeah. And so in a way, you had these tokens that were very tangible and physical. For those of you that buy our physical records, you know that we tend to send you like incense. We've sent different stuff in the past to kind of like make it more than just a listening experience. Like now you have a scent associated with the record, or maybe you have like a physical item that's associated. Well, we wanted to do the same thing here. And so in a way, these might have been those items had we had the budget and time to actually put those together.
Yeah.
So that would have been super cool. We originally were going to do cicadas.
Yeah.
So I spent some time, if you look back on our Instagram or even our videos, I spent some time learning how to pin dead cicadas into like shadow boxes, and I wanted to send one with each of the collector's editions as the cicadas that are in the record, right? That was the idea.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be a fun piece, but ultimately the logistics just didn't work out. So maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
All right, let's move on to the next song here. We're on the last song of the record, Beyond the Passage of Embers.
And this one also is a little, if I do like a quick scroll, is also, nah, it's actually not. I thought it was kind of light on lyrics, but it's actually pretty standard.
Yeah, this is pretty run of the mill for Mark.
Yeah. So
right there. There you go.
Yeah, this is kind of where everything comes to form, and it's the first song where he's not really. This is the first song where he is accepting the present. Actually, this is the first song where he's not looking back at all. He's also not looking forward. He's just saying he has created a situation and he is happy to watch it play out.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I never really thought about that, but
in a way it kind of subverts the entire rest of his perception of the record, because now he actually is in control and he is going to do the thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He's going to seal his fate how he wants to. He won't be a victim of life and circumstance.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's pretty powerful. Would you say that he is at the threshold of liminal right at this point?
This song is the liminal right.
It is the right to be taking place.
Yes. So it is the transitionary. It is the transitionary point, and it is the rite or ritual that he puts into play. Which again, like you said, is kind of, this song is kind of like the cousin to the Never Breath album in a way lyrically. I never really thought about that, but it really is. They're very similar albums. It's just different skins.
Yeah, absolutely. Different skins is a perfect way to say it. For those of you that don't know, we have a black metal project that we just do for fun on the side called Never Breath. And the one album that we released last year is called To Defile is to Transcend.
Yeah.
And it's 8 tracks about a guy who takes his own life through ritual for this demon creature.
We could always do one of these for that album.
Oh, criminy. That would be so much fun. We have to do it in corpse paint.
That would be great. That would be fun. Yeah.
I'm so excited. I want to do this now. Okay. Anyways. All right. So Beyond the Passage of Embers, this is the precipice of the threshold of liminal right. So let's begin. This is a 12-minute track. It was highly inspired by our bass player, Alex, who wanted to do a Doom song or piece of Doom music on the record. And it just so happens that this is that piece. So we spent the first minute and a half, which we thought was going to be actually you singing.
Yeah.
But we were able to get a hold of Christoph Klusser, who is the saxophone player for Born Under Club of Gore, one of our favorite bands of all time. And getting a hold of him and asking him to participate on this record meant that we needed to give him a landscape to perform his really eerie and hauntingly beautiful saxophone work. And so this just happened to be that. So instead of your voice at the beginning of the song, it's saxophone now.
Yep.
Even though, just to be clear again on a technicality, because I know these things, we used a software to stretch your voice out to create the landscape for his saxophone.
That's true.
So it's really, really cool how they're all combined in there. So let's begin. First stanza. You say, "Take me home, country roads."
Jesus Christ.
I'm just kidding. "Take me home, flame on the floor. Tell them that I'm home. Light on the door, dancing shadows of me. Take me home, fire."
So in this stanza, we actually show up after everything is set in motion. He's lit the house on fire with full intention, not by accident. He has decided this. We actually kind of skip the moment where he actually does it, and we zoom.
But he talks about it.
There are multiple places where he decided to do it, but he has, with full intention, lit the house on fire, with the goal of burning to death inside of it, and that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And so I imagine him at this point. The walls are in flames. There's flame around him. And there's fire around him, and he's just like laying on the floor, maybe hands on his stomach, looking up at the ceiling. And he's basically, it's kind of exactly what it says, take me home, flame on the floor. He's saying to the flame, all right, like, do it, like, here we go. Tell them that I'm home, light on the door. It's the same, like, the light is casting a shadow of him, and he looks to the side, and the flames over there cast a shadow of his body. And so his family is shadows. He sees his own shadow. He's going to be with his family. And then dancing shadows of me is its own sentence. But that's to just get, I did that just for motion, because fire flickers, and the shadow of fire flickers. And so he sees his own shadow dancing on the wall, and he remembers the phantom of his family as shadows on the wall. And he's just ready. He's saying, like, I accept this, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it totally makes sense. What I really like about this is that the take me home part, take me home, is repeated twice, but it kind of makes me think back to like almost like my perception of the Vikings when they think like Valhalla is home. They're like, take me to Valhalla, like bring me back to that thing that I've always wanted to be a part of. Similarly with like movies like Gladiator, when Russell Crowe's character Maximus, when he's like, his hands are running through the crops, like that's home to him. He's like, take me back to that feeling, that where I wasn't in this kind of pain or turmoil, or without you, my family. So I think about how Take Me Home is very powerful in that section, and the fact that it's one of the strongest delivery points in the record. That you just, is that a belt? Are you belting?
No.
Take me home. Is it like a chest or a head? Or?
When I say fire, it's a little bit belty. It's like a chesty mixed voice.
Okay.
And it's projected, but it's not like full on belt territory.
It just feels so bigger than life, the performance of it,
It's interesting because I'll scoot away for the mic, but all that's based on is literally saying, hey, yay. That's it. You just call out to a friend and do it on pitch.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Okay.
But
he's trying to make it sound easy. It's not that easy, dude.
It's easy once you get it. It is. It's easy once you get it. And the thing about it is most vocal technique people already do anyway, and they just don't realize it.
Yeah,
like,
you just gotta teach them how to control it, right?
Yeah, teach them how to control it and do it on purpose.
Yeah, like when I was doing like the like the old man. You said I sound like an old man.
Yeah,
when I was like,
I don't know what that was.
Barking earlier.
This is also a good example of how his idea of home has been twisted. Because if you think about it, there's nothing that says he couldn't have had this experience and said, "Hey, I need to let this go." And he goes back and he makes some like real world friends and he gets some therapy and he moves forward. There's nothing that says he couldn't have done that. That was weird. Well, the video just flickered and we're going to ignore it.
Yeah, we're going to ignore it.
We're gonna ignore
Nothing
it.
happened. Do not back this up to watch that again.
No. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay. The second stanza here, let's scroll down a little bit, right to there. You say, roof open wide, eyes to the stars, the sky, attic come down, rest on the ground, a light. This sounds like you're describing him laying on his back, looking up at like maybe like a hole that's broken through the ceiling at the stars. And he's basically just saying like, I'm ready, like bring the ceiling to me, like let it fall upon me and encase me. Yeah,
essentially that's right. So realistically, in the real world, he probably would have died of smoke inhalation far before this point. But thematically, it's kind of beautiful. But basically, he sees the ceiling and the roof fall because of the fire eating away at the house, and he can see the night sky through there. And then at the same time, the floor falls from under him, and he starts to fall into the attic. Yeah,
the attic.
I'm sorry, the basement.
Okay, I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
So the ceiling opens up, the floor opens up, and he begins to fall. And I wanted to sing this really gently because I wanted it to be a beautiful experience for him. Because oftentimes when we're in this mindset, our perception of what's beautiful and what's not is messed up. It's all screwy. And so for him, seeing the roof and the embers caving in upon himself, and him sort of getting like, consumed into the basement, consumed into the house. The house is like eating him almost.
Right.
It's what he wants to happen. And a cool thing, I didn't know about this at the time, but a light has two meanings. It means for something to be on fire, but it also means for something to descend or fall. So
really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I didn't know that. So the house is collapsing which is an action of falling, and it's collapsing because it's on fire with him in it. So I just thought that was a cool thing.
Yeah, that's got a cool like double entendre. I don't think is the right word, but like it's got a duality.
Double
to
meaning.
it.
Yeah.
Double meaning. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to kind of tell a short story about in that section is that when we were in the studio, we actually thought we had lost those takes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? We were sitting there, and because these are those falsetto takes that are harmonized.
Mm-hmm.
It's the like, it's like really high up there, and they can be a challenge to perform, especially when you're like under the deadline of being in a studio. So Maya was going through the record, and Mark like peeks over his laptop from behind, and he's like, wait.
There should be vocal takes here.
There's supposed to be shit there, man. And we like kind of like look back at him, and we're like, no, like there's nothing there. And Mark's like, I do not want to redo these right now.
I remember what I said. I said, I know there's nothing there. Oh, there should be something there.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sure enough, we went back into the files, re-imported them, and they were there, but part of the cleanup process had removed them. So I'm glad we found them because they're really nice texture and like layering in there.
There was one section that was lost that I had to retrack, and it was the My Hand and Eclipse. That was easy though. I just like hopped into the booth, and I actually think that the take I did in the booth was better than the one that was going to be there.
Do you know why?
No.
$5,000 microphone. That'll do that. That'll do that.
Yeah. That's a good microphone.
Nah, this is me being funny. So then you have these shorter sections here, and you say, my empty hand and eclipse. I'm telling you, you're just stealing Umbra lyrics. That's all I'm trying to say.
It also should just be my hand and eclipse, not my empty hand and eclipse.
Oh, Riley, fix it. My hand and eclipse. No need to wake again. I'll never leave. That part is like viscerally real. Especially at this point. It's almost like this is almost like a foreshadowment of what the events were of the first stanza. It's him being like, hey, I don't have to leave here. Like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
I like that he's actualizing something finally. Like, since we've gone this deep dive in the lyrics and I have this new canon in my head of what this dude's going at and like how his life exists, hearing that he actually is in control of something is kind of like relieving to me now.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted the listener, if they take the time to understand the lyrics, to feel his sense of relief, even though objectively knowing this is not the solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not a healthy solution.
It's not a healthy solution.
Yeah. Don't try to emulate that.
The only thing I'll point out is the My Hand and Eclipse part. So obviously he's falling. So, it's the movie thing.
It's like the really cool, like,
oh. Yeah. But I did that kind of because it sort of calls back to Silvered Shadows, right? Because he's like, and it's another Umbra thing. But, if there's a light behind you, there's like that lining around you.
Oh yeah, and then silhouette.
Yeah, and then like with the eclipse, there's like the light on the other side of his hand. So I just thought that was kind of cool. But that's really all there is to say about those two parts.
Yeah, that part's really beautiful. There's a lot of things that are kind of like thematic with the universe we build, and that is like shadows, reflections, hands.
Yeah,
the almanac is almost all about a hand.
That's true
to some degree, right? Hands, like the shadows and stuff. So it's interesting how all these themes recur. I know that it's intentional for us to like foreshadow melody oftentimes, where you and I will play off of melody from one another.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
But then also lyrically, you make decisions to call back to other records or other songs, and you want to like invite people to make the connection on their own.
Right.
But now with this meta canon that we're discovering with like shadows and hands and reflections, it's kind of becoming even bigger now.
Yeah,
which is super cool.
We do have our themes, and oftentimes I feel like we realize them after the fact.
Always, because in the moment it's like this would be cool, but this would be cool just happens to track for us, right? The things we want to be cool. Instead of saying like, oh, we should do a gnarly, brutal breakdown where you snarl like a pig throughout the entire thing. That can track for people. That's just not what we track.
It's not what we do.
So it's interesting how we choose our thing. Okay, so you've scrolled down already. Thank you. So the next stanza here, and I want you to help me remember at what point the vocal style changes.
Right here.
So this is the change.
This is where it gets like.
Is this part? Yep, that's it.
Yeah. It's when it gets kind of black metal-y.
Yep, this is it. Okay, so then this is the part where you say, swallow each thought I am, oubliette, forget me, down in the cellar, dirge sung in embers, to the cracking of dry bones, rise from these ashen walls, our censor. First of all, were you playing Dark Souls and that's why you chose Ashen?
No, but I'm playing Dark Souls now.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring tonight, dude. We're gonna fucking smash.
Okay.
Okay, so break this down for me. I love a lot of the words in here. There's a lot of allusions to like the fires and the house and stuff. So let's break it down.
Sure. So swallow each thought I am is, again, the house is like swallowing him.
Right.
And he is basically saying like, yes, like destroy me.
Yeah.
Like kill me, just take me out. And then what?
I normally have to pay someone and ask them to destroy me, so it's a little different.
Yeah, I know.
It's a sex joke.
It's yep. And then if you think about it, the basement or the cellar is kind of like an oubliette in this sense. It's a hole, one opening. You ain't coming out of it.
Have we mentioned oubliette previously?
I don't think the word oubliette has been used so far.
Okay.
But like it's like the cellar is kind of like an oubliette. He's falling. He's gonna be forgotten in there, which I'll point to even for a little bit more in the upcoming lyrics. And then this next section, obviously, like it's pretty obviously what it's about. Dirge sung in Embers. A dirge is like a funeral song, right? So the cracking of because a raging fire has like a roar. It has like a roaring sound to it, and so that is like his funeral song. Basically, it's the sound of the house cracking and groaning and burning. Dirge sung in Embers to the cracking of dry bones. It's the frame of the house.
Yeah.
And then rise from these ashen walls are censers. So the sound is raising, the smoke is raising, and a censer is like it's like a liturgical tool that is swung back and forth and has like incense and stuff. And so it's basically that kind of lends to the ritual aspect of what he's doing. But I'll be honest, most of these lyrics were picked because they're very chewy. Dirge sung in Embers to the cracking of dry bones, rise from these ashen walls are censer. It was something I could really chew on.
Yeah.
And I hadn't, in this album so far, I had done a lot of really like good metal vocals that I was very proud of, but I hadn't gotten like brutal yet.
Yeah, you didn't get ignorant with that shit.
Yeah, right. And so I wanted to have one section where I was just like,
yeah,
like I wanted to get like gross. And so I picked lyrics that I could really like sing through grit teeth and like pull my face back from the scream. So I wrote it with the syllables and rhyme. Dirge sung in Embers to the crack. Like that's a great word to scream. Crack. Yeah. Crack. It's a great word. So it was that. Like those are all the things I intended to say, but I was thinking mostly about the way that I could chew on the sound as it came out
the
first.
best words for the delivery.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I have a couple things on this. One, for those of us who don't know, what is an oubliette?
So an oubliette is I learned about it from the movie Labyrinth when I was but a wee lad. But an oubliette is basically a type of prison or jail cell is a better way to put it, where it was, and there were different kinds, but it's basically a really deep hole with a very narrow opening at the top. And people would put you in there and then just ignore you till you died.
Yep.
Sometimes they would throw food down there. Other times, and they didn't really clean the bodies out, so they would fill. So sometimes you'd get in the Middle Ages, you'd get thrown in an oubliette and you'd be standing on top of other bodies.
Yeah.
And that's just what it was.
And that was a reality.
Horrible.
Yeah, absolutely detestable. But the idea of this being his dungeon, this
his
being
his
death position, like there's no way out, is kind of another way of like inferring the oubliette aspect. Because you could have said like into like a hole or into the dungeon or into the cellar, but you chose oubliette because it means like you're not getting out of here, dude. Like it's not happening.
You're not getting out. And there's an oubliette. Another thing about an oubliette is very specifically the opening is above the person.
Right.
It's not a door on the side. It's a very small opening above them. So like and if you think about it, that's like super cruel, because if the gate is like a door, at least you can lean on the gate. You can put your arm outside of it, feel some sense of like being on the outside. But instead, what you have is a little grate, 30 feet above you that you can't even jump towards. Like the hopelessness would be insane.
Yeah, that's a dark word with a dark history. Something else that I think is really interesting about this stanza is the callback to the cellar. Which is mentioned throughout, right? That tracks with the record, but Cellar of Ghosts, he is now in the cellar about to become a ghost, is kind of a little thing that I sort of put together in my mind. And instead of having this like really, okay, so the other thing is he has fond memories of the cellar, specifically with the story you tell in Cellar of Ghosts, where he was sipping on wine stone
Wine stole when I was young.
Wine stole. Yeah. So he was like stealing sips of wine
Yeah.
from the cellar, which is a fond memory for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's now going to die in control of his death in the cellar, the place where he actually felt good memories.
That's a good thought.
There's kind of an interesting correlation there.
That is, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Taking control in a place where he had some good memory. Yeah.
Or maybe felt most comfortable or most safe or something, right?
For sure.
Let's go ahead and scroll down to the next section here. You say, washed out with the flame. That's a standalone line. Why is that? Is that an execution thing, like for the musicality?
Yeah, I just felt like there needed to be vocals there, but I also didn't want it to be too demanding. So that section vocally is also very washed out.
Yeah.
Washed out with a flame. I think that's the melody I'm using. And it's like super verby, very far back. I just wanted the sound of voice to be there because it made sense. And so I picked lyrics that weren't too demanding.
Yeah, it's a little bit slower, but it is more of like an ambient effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yep.
You then go on to say, I will be found in the morning and no one will know who I am. Ooh, this is interesting. Now he's like, so you had mentioned how he's in the moment, but now if this is like a reflection that he's having, he's saying, I will be found in the morning. Do you think he'll be found if he's like encased in ashes under an entire house?
I would imagine probably eventually.
Like as they're cleaning through it, they're excavating out the remains. They're like, oh shit, there's a body in here.
If anybody, the fire department would show up, because somebody would report seeing fire.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is actually a reference to what, in my opinion, is the best song written about death in the history of humanity. Or maybe not the best, because that's an objective statement. My favorite.
Okay.
And it's a song by Hosier. The same guy who did like Take Me to Church and all that stuff.
I love that song. Ugh.
Take Me to Church?
Yeah.
I think Take Me to Church is a little overrated.
Fuck you, dude. That song smacks, bro.
It's all right. In a Week is one of the best songs, one of my favorite songs I've ever heard. And in the song In a Week, there's a lot more to it, but the main line is, they'll find us in a week. And there are different versions, but when the weather gets hot, after the foxes have made their claim, I'll be home with you. And I just remember thinking like, damn, like, oh, that's making me cry. And he goes into all these, it's hard to tell what the song is about, but it sounds like he and somebody he loves choosing to walk out into the wilderness or into a field and to die together.
Yeah, to like lay down and embrace one another.
Lay down and embrace one another. Like the first line to that song, I'll never write this good, but I've never known comfort like the damp grass that yields to me. Like, Jesus Christ. Just forget it.
That is a really good line.
I have never known hunger like these insects that feed on me. 1,000 teeth amongst them, 1,000 teeth, but yours among them. I know our hunger becomes appeased, our heartbeats becoming slow. Like that's the thing, man. Like, Pop, he is literally going under the chairs.
What the heck?
All right, good job.
Oh yeah, you got to take a picture.
I got to take a picture of that.
We're gonna take a picture of Dozer right now.
But essentially, my dog's just being cute. But essentially,
he's army crawling under these chairs.
Yeah, look at him go.
What is he doing? And now he's just laying there. Yeah. I need you to send that to me so I can post it on the Discord. If you guys want to see what Dozer was doing, check the Discord.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's amazing.
So I wanted to kind of reference that without like ripping it off. So I will be found in the morning, and no one will know who I am. I'll be erased from history, and that'll be nice. Yeah. Which is interesting because for people who are in the mindset that removing themselves from life is the right choice, there is often an element of wanting people to find them and what that will be perceived as.
So it's almost like they relish the thought of how people will feel when they find out what they've done.
I don't know if relish is the right word. I would say maybe some people, but they're just like aware. They're aware that.
Do you think it motivates them?
I think that it's too complex to give one reason to everybody.
Fair.
But I think that it could be a lot of things. Most of the time when people are in that mindset, again, I'm not like a psychologist, I'm not a professional, I'm just somebody who's been through it and has talked to a lot of people who've been through it. It's not that they're saying like, oh, that attention will be great, or that they're saying, this will get them. What they're saying is, I will finally be able to be honest. A corpse can't lie.
There's a pun in there.
Maybe there is. Oh, laying on the ground. Yeah. But like, like that's a very honest, like being a corpse is a very honest state to be in.
Yeah, you're right. No deception there.
No. And so, and that's ultimately what causes people to like not go through it, because they're like, that's a lot of trauma for my family. Maybe not.
Maybe it's like a form of comfort in demasking. Like,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You that's it. Like for many people and for myself, obviously, I was clear-headed enough to see that that's not how it was going to work out, but I was able, the idea of not having to hide how I felt and just letting all that pressure out was like a big part of it.
I bet.
And then obviously, you think about, well, that's not how they're going to receive it. They're going to be wrecked for the rest of their life.
Yep.
And then you're like, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Very selfless to stick around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all interesting. We spent a lot of time on a 2-line.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Let's see. Okay, cool. You're already down to the next section. So now you say, mind, rise with the smoke. I'm asking for forgiveness. I'm being selfish again. But what else do I know? As a curling silhouette, I can finally let go. I can finally let go.
So these, again, I think in reality, if you were on fire, your thoughts would not be this clear.
Right.
Your thoughts would be, you wouldn't even have thoughts. I think it would just be all instinct and chemicals. But in the realm of this allegory, these are the thoughts that he is having as he is being consumed by fire. This stanza is when he dies. And he is dying. His mind is rising with the smoke. That's pretty obvious. And then he's like, I'm asking for forgiveness. I'm being selfish again, but what do I know? He's almost saying like that. He's almost saying to his family who is already dead that he's sorry that it turned out this way. Like, I know that taking my own life and burning this house down is a very selfish thing to do, but that's all I know. That's the only person I know how to be. And I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry, but this is how I am choosing to deal with it. Because he's aware of that. And then as a curling silhouette, so that's like before he was looking at his shadow very calm. Now he's looking at his shadow, and his shadow is like writhing in pain. The silhouette is curling, like his arms.
Curling.
Yeah, like his arms, and he's like, maybe like thrashing around on the ground. Also, like, if you've ever burned like certain types of branches, like the bark curls a little bit. And so in my mind, like that was kind of like his skin cracking and peeling away and curling away from his body.
So visceral.
Yeah, but that's what he wanted. And so as a curling silhouette, I can finally let go.
Yeah.
And earlier in the album, there were many sections where he talks about not being able to let go. I can't, what does it mean to breathe in your ghost again? I can't release this.
I can't release this.
Yeah.
Feeling trapped by it.
Yeah, exactly. There are many places where he says he can't let go in some form. And here he's saying, well, I can finally let go. And that is where the lyrics that I wrote end.
Yes. However, let's reflect really quick on the delivery of this. The music changes to these abrupt, like held out chords. And you're like, and you kind of get into this like preaching mode.
Yeah.
I think of it now that you've described it, the canon would be that he's like, in his mind, he can see himself like making a declaration into the universe.
Right.
In a way. I think of the Thane of whatever it's called in Lord of the Rings, where he's like burning his still alive son who's unconscious, and Gandalf has to like smack him off of the pyre.
And eats the tomato all nasty.
Yeah, that guy, right? That guy. But how he's like doing like and he's like all consumed by the madness of the scenario. Yeah. And being consumed alive. And so I think same here, like the delivery, mind rise with the smoke, I'm asking for forgiveness. Like just that whole uncontrolled style.
Yeah, in that section, that's exactly what it was. I didn't worry too much about like being on time. I'm mostly on time, but I'm not worrying about like moving with the music. And the vocals I did here, I did for the album intentionally. I did not practice good vocal technique. I opened my mouth and I just pushed. If we were to ever play live, I would not perform them that way because this was very hard on my throat.
Wow.
This section, but I wanted that pain to be expressed in my voice. And I'm actually an advocate for that. I'm like, it's okay from time to time to put one or two unhealthy things on an album, but you wouldn't want to perform it that way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to do it repeated. And there is some restraint I had because you can have like a vocal cord hemorrhage in the moment. So I still thought about, using my abdominals and just like the basic foundational elements of screaming, but I let a lot of things slide. And I definitely like after recording this section, my throat definitely felt sore for probably about like 10 minutes or so. So I would go with something much more balanced.
Right.
If we were to ever perform it, something that would sound similar, but it would definitely not sound as like,
right. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
We've done some shit in the past where you have pushed yourself to a point where you just weren't sure. You're like, I don't know, man.
The first time I ever did the Pilgrim vocals, it's good that we removed it because it was basically copyright infringement. But Yesterday Upon the Stairs, I met a man who wasn't there. That's how that song used to open. And I really hurt my voice with that. Because I'd never done like a gritty belt before. This was years ago. I'd never done a gritty belt before. I did not know what I was doing. I was like, oh, you just yell loud and make it gritty. Wrong. And I was like, I couldn't do vocals for like 2 or 3 weeks, if you remember.
I don't remember, but that sounds right.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm never doing those again. And then I did them again for
I'm a Pilgrim.
Beyond Behind Leaves and Vines. And I had spent time learning how to do them mostly properly, and now I can do them very easily. But yeah. Contentious history with that vocal sound.
Yeah, well, now you know how to look up the right things. You've informed yourself with like, okay, I want to achieve this thing, and I think this is the method by which I can do that. I should research how to achieve that.
Yeah, pretty much.
That it's important to be knowledgeable in that regard. I'm glad that you've said that. It's almost obligatory as a vocal coach, but like sharing your history of like, mistakes you've learned from is also part of it.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. I want people to understand that I've made some vocal mistakes. Sure. And so if they make vocal mistakes, I know what it's like to recover from that vocal mistake because I've had to recover from those vocal mistakes myself.
Yeah, totally.
That's that.
It also reminds me, speaking of Never Breath, on that one record that we did, there's a spot in there where you went higher in your high-pitched voice. You're like,
yeah,
you went higher than you had ever done before, and you're like, yep, that's the take. I'm not doing that twice.
That's my highest recorded vocal ever. And now, because I practice, now I could do it anytime.
Oh, okay.
Because I've practiced it and I've learned how to utilize my tongue more than my throat to create the narrow space that I need. And now, like, I could do it pretty much whenever.
See, learning from the past, baby. Unlike our guy here,
unlike this guy
who's about to have a really terrible ending again.
Yeah.
So this is your lyrics are done now.
My lyrics are done.
Now we move into the final monologue of the 3 monologues across the album: the intro song, Dissever, and then Here. And it reads as follows. I'm actually just going to play the clip. Fuck it. Play the clip.
Play the clip. That's enough of a pause, I think.
Yeah, me too. I was just thinking of what to say
next.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, the album is over. You now hear just the ensuing chaos with these screams. Now you have these layered screams, highs, lows, mids, all kinds of stuff, but they kind of bark out with the crescendos of this doomy breakdown section here. Did you have like a process for this? Like, or what is happening? Is the guy yelling? Like, is he screaming in pain or relief, or
I think
is there an embodiment somehow?
I think that was kind of the idea. I want to talk a little bit about that monologue first, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's back up.
One thing that's great about that monologue is it puts the liminal in liminal right. This is kind of a contention I have with like liminality as an aesthetic on the internet.
Yeah.
It started cool and then it went too dark. And then we wrote a dark album about liminality. So whatever.
We're part of the problem, Mark.
No, we're not. Because it's not about liminality.
I'm never the problem.
Oh, I am definitely sometimes. I definitely am sometimes. But so like, oftentimes when people post photographs. This is kind of how I was introduced to the idea of liminality. Is there was a subreddit called Liminal Spaces, and it used to be really cool. It sucks now. But it used to be really cool because it was photos of places that looked familiar, but you'd never been to them before.
Yes.
It was like, and they were always a little bit, they had this feeling of distant. It's like, I feel like I've been to this mall, but there's also nothing about that mall that is identifiable. And looking at it feels like a shadowy memory. And he does this, I don't know if he did this on purpose, but he did it very well. He talks about how, yeah, this is that timeline wise, this monologue doesn't make sense for it to be here, but it sounds so cool. So who cares?
Yeah.
But the ground has moved. The windows are facing a different direction. The cicadas sound different. The animals don't come here anymore. So it's like it's like an uncanny valley thing. Like it's if you saw me and I looked like Mark, but I just didn't look. That's not Mark. Looks exactly like him, but that's not him.
Right.
That's basically what this is talking about. And so it's referring to the
liminality of the record.
Yeah, the liminality of
or the home.
Yeah, the darker side of the darker side of the liminal part of the aesthetic. I cannot fathom how, but everything has changed.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
And so I think that he nailed it.
Yeah, he did.
And I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and he being Alex, our bass player, he wrote all the monologues, and you're right, he did nail it. There's a lot in there that I really, really love. There's a one spot in particular, and sonically, I know this is a lyrics deep dive, but sonically, there's a moment in this monologue where the soundscape goes from resolute, like resolved, you think the song is over, and then this tension starts to build, and that is when the word though occurs.
Yeah, I never noticed that, but you're totally right.
You got it.
I can think of it in my head right now.
Yeah, it's like it just that half step down. And so in a way, if I'm thinking about this as like a movie, right? Because I do this very much. I'm a visual person in this way. Yeah. When I think about this as a movie, the house is burning. He's dying. He's in the fucking cellar covered in detritus and debris, and everything is burning, and his skin is boiling, and his eyes have left him his head. And then there's this like reflection back to his approach to the house and what he thought was going to happen and how it was going to play out and how he might have had like a healthy outcome. But then the moment though occurs.
Yeah.
And the whole thing goes like, and it's just getting dark now. Everything is different. The animals don't come here anymore. I think the most awesome line is, and the arms of the earth have fallen. And Sean's performance of that line, it gets me right here in the chest, dude. Every time I hear it, this piece of shit, he's playing Rambo.
He's trying to get out.
Wait, what's your plan, man?
He got himself into a sticky
You're
situation.
in an oubliette, baby. There's only one way out.
He'll figure it out.
He's trying to scooch backwards.
He might knock some chairs down, but you know he'll learn.
It's not just going to be chairs though. Oh, there he comes. Beep, beep, beep. He needs a backup. Thing. Good job, Dozy. Okay. So anyways, yes, I love the delivery that Sean does throughout the entire thing, of course, but like those moments when he says though, and that the arms of the earth have fallen, which is a reference to the trees.
To the trees. What a cool name for tree, Arms of the Earth. I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Love it.
But that's the whole record. So the screams at the end, those don't embody, is this the lost man yelling?
I mean, I mostly did it because it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have, again, like I would say that overall the screams on he's going back. I would say that overall the screams on Liminal Right are not like brutal.
No.
They're textural, they're ambient, they're powerful. But I wanted to just do something fucking thick.
Yeah,
I wanted to kind of get like some of the feeling that like even though the songs are totally different, that like Never Breath or Viremia gave me, where it's just like exploring the like grotesque side of vocals that you can do.
Yep.
And I think that what the vocals, because there are like 6 layers, it's gratuitous, and I love it. But I think that it serves the purpose of like the voice echoing through the woods. I don't know that was like my intention, but I think it fits if you kind of look at it through that lens.
Yeah, your head canon makes you think like this is probably what that serves.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
I do the same thing with all of those layers that are there. I remember building out the texture and making everything feel as like as desolate, but also as like powerful as possible.
Yeah.
And so when we were writing that section, there was some chaos in there. Nobody knows how to recreate it because we chose chords that we couldn't remember. That was like part of the chaos, is like Alex would play something on the bass and I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm just like, all right, me too. And so I played something and I didn't even know what it is. So
it was all, I wasn't there, but like from what you explained to me, it sounds like it was all just kind of like very much written in the moment, seat of your pants. Sounds good. It is good. Put your finger like that. Cool.
Yeah. And but even then, put your finger like that wasn't even in the equation. It was just like, I'm gonna do this now. Mm-hmm. So that was a ton of fun. But that's the whole record. That's
the whole thing.
That is 6 videos, I think, of Liminal RITE. It's an hour-long record. I think we should do this for Never Breath. And I think it would be cool to also do a video where we talk about what we're gonna do for the next record, what our plan is. You can't hold us to it because plans change, but we have a plan right now and we could talk about it.
We do.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So thank you all for being here and listening to the entire lyrical analysis and deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this. If this was like interesting to you, or if you have, I don't know, things like stories you want to share that we've, brought attention to, we'd love to read about them in the comments. We have plenty of videos like this in our catalog from all of our records. So if you like it, go check those out as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say? Thanks. Just like that. That's the whole thing. I've already cut to black at this point, but I just...
Oh, so this is actually a very important announcement.
You're so full of shit.
For all of the people who are fans of Kardashev.
Oh, that's right.
This is a very big and important